Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, I have some bonus content for you guys. The bonus content we'll be covering today will be in the sport of basketball inside the NBA world. Today's bonus segment, I found myself reminiscing throughout the week, thinking about the game of basketball. So I dedicated today's bonus segment to how special the 2016 NBA season truly was. In terms of nostalgia, in terms of absolute cinema, the 2016 NBA season is one of the greatest NBA basketball seasons of all time. Based off the term of events, based off the teams that were good, based off the players that made it good, the awards that were given out that year, the NBA playoffs. We're going to cover it all of why the 2016 NBA season was special. Starting off with the incredible teams and the players that we watched play nearly 10 years ago, and how the NBA landscape was completely different from what it is today. Starting off with the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors had that historic year where the Golden State Warriors put together the best regular season record in NBA history, where they had 73 wins and 9 losses in an NBA season. The trio of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, all in the prime of their careers, with a prime Andre Iguodala to be another X factor, a part of that Golden State Warriors team, with Steve Kerr coaching. They had the championship experience the year prior, winning the NBA Finals in 2015. They went on to have the best regular season record in NBA history, doing something that the 90s Bulls that had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, something they couldn't even accomplish in the 90s. They went 73-9 to break the regular season record that year, and even start off the season as hot as a forest fire, starting off the season 20-0. That is impressive in the NBA, playing on a basically night-to-night basis, every other night, sometimes 2 games back-to-back nights. That was impressive what the Golden State Warriors done. The only thing that they did not execute on was winning an NBA title that year, and I'll get to that later on in the segment. But also, going over some players, one of my favorite big men to watch over the years was a prime DeMarcus Cousins, a big man that the Sacramento Kings wasted talent-wise. But DeMarcus Cousins in his prime was an absolute joy to watch, one of the best big men that the NBA had to offer in 2016. And in 2016, DeMarcus Cousins averaged 27 points per game, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Also had a 55-point game against the Portland Trail Blazers in that 2016 NBA season. One of the best scoring outputs in that entire season. There was a man, a legend, that put up more points in a single season game that happened that year. I'll get to that also towards that back end of the segment. But also another special team that was around the Western Conference in 2016 was the Los Angeles Clippers. I mean, Lob City of Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Jamal Crawford, Doc Rivers coaching. I felt like that was one of my favorite teams to pay attention to in the Western Conference from 2012, 2013, all the way until it finally ended a few years prior to 2016. But this core, I feel like, never reached their full potential. Talent-wise, yes, they were pretty exciting players to play a part, and DeAndre Jordan was a part of that team as well. The Lob City, the alley-oops, having Chris Paul, one of the best point guards of all time, play with one of the best power forwards of that time frame, and Blake Griffin. There was a lot of talent there in Los Angeles with the Clippers. They just never could get over the hump and get to the Western Conference Finals. And that's one of the reasons why they eventually had to break up the whole entire core out there in LA. But another underrated team in 2016, this team was out in the Eastern Conference, the Atlanta Hawks. They had Al Horford, Jeff Teague, Kyle Korver, Paul Millsap. That was a very underrated core that Atlanta had, and they tried their best to win a championship with that core and never worked out. And they had basically had to spread those players out because they maximized their own potential and their own ceiling out there in Atlanta together. But that was an underrated core out there in the Eastern Conference from that time frame. And, of course, the 2016 Washington Wizards, a prime John Wall, a prime Bradley Beal. These are things that the Washington Wizards are dying to have. Players like the caliber of what John Wall was in his prime, what the caliber player of what Bradley Beal was in his prime. There were some special moments there, and I'll throw in some honorable mentions. Jimmy Butler playing with the Chicago Bulls feels like a whole eternity ago. Isaiah Thomas, the run that he had with the Boston Celtics as well. I mean, there were some exciting teams and players to pay attention to in the 2016 NBA season. But let's get into something that interests me throughout this midway point of the season. That was the 2016 NBA All-Star Weekend. Now, you had the legendary three-point contest between Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. This was actually the finals of the 2015 and the 2016 three-point contest, where the Splash Brothers of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson went back and forth with each other 2 previous years. But it was Klay Thompson that got the better part of Steph Curry this year. Steph Curry won the 2015 three-point contest, and then Klay Thompson avenged his loss against his own Splash brother in Steph Curry when Klay Thompson won the award in 2016. So great back-and-forth battle in the three-point contest. But what really stands out from All-Star Weekend was the legendary dunk contest between Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon. Probably one of the best dunk contests I've ever seen in my life. And the back and forth exchanges of exciting dunks between Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, both back and forth. In the end, one man had to win that night. Unfortunately, Aaron Gordon did not get his hand raised, and it was Zach LaVine. And Aaron Gordon, unfortunately, never won a dunk contest, which is the reason why I would never participate in one probably ever again, is because of the bizarre judges that never gave him the benefit of the doubt during the dunk contest over the years. But Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon put on one hell of a show in 2016. And I'll say the NBA All-Star game that year was pretty forgettable. But the final sequences of LeBron James and Kobe Bryant going back and forth playing defense on each other, which probably that was the last time those two Hall of Fame players ever matched up against each other on the court. The vibes of that was pretty entertaining. Kobe Bryant locking up LeBron James. LeBron smacking the floor, wanting to lock it down and play defense. These two players going back and forth, ISO ball against each other. A great sequence to end at the All-Star Weekend that year. But NBA All-Star Weekend with the three-point contest and the dunk contest was pretty entertaining that year. Which brings us to the final regular season game. And I will always remember this night because it was one of the most historic nights in NBA history, because you had a tough choice that night, the viewers at home watching, for teams that play on the West Coast. Option A was seeing Kobe Bryant's final game against the Utah Jazz. Or option B was the Golden State Warriors going on to play for the all-time record for the best regular season record in NBA history, chasing that 73-9 record, which they did achieve. But I remember I picked option A, and I watched the Los Angeles Lakers versus Utah Jazz game. Now, obviously, the Lakers were eliminated. They had nothing to play for. But the thing that made everybody tune in, it was Kobe Bryant's final NBA game. And when he played against the Utah Jazz, the Jazz were trying to compete for the final spot out there in the Western Conference for the playoffs. But Kobe Bryant, playing in LA, Staples Center at the time, went out there and put on a show in front of legends, icons that seen Kobe play his final game in a gold and purple uniform. Now, it took Kobe Bryant to get going in the second half of the game. That's when he started really turning it up a notch, and towards the end of the game, Kobe Bryant ended up with 60 points in his final NBA game. It wasn't the most perfect performance, but Kobe Bryant didn't give a damn. He left it all on the court. He was exhausted by the end of the game. I do believe he shot 22 for 50 from the field that night. So again, it wasn't the best performance of a lifetime. But the fact that Kobe Bryant that late in his career could dig down deep to have one more great performance, dropping 60 points in front of the LA crowd, and then iconically ending his career in terms of points wise the same way he started his career. Scored his first 2 points at the free throw line, scored his final 2 NBA points at the free throw line. The Lakers won that game, eliminated the Jazz from playoff contention, and then Kobe Bryant picked up the microphone and said, "Mamba out." And that was basically a salute for 18 to 20 years of what Kobe Bryant gave Lakers Nation. 5 NBA titles. Probably, in my opinion, the second greatest shooting guard of all time behind Michael Jordan. I mean, Kobe Bryant gave you everything that he had. To watch that game over that Warriors game, which I do believe they blew out the Grizzlies that night, to achieve that, obviously the right choice. And for the most part, a lot of NBA viewers made the right choice as well that night. But getting to the NBA awards that year, it was pretty interesting because you had Steph Curry winning back-to-back MVP. Steph Curry was the first ever unanimous MVP in NBA history. Defensive Player of the Year that year went to Kawhi Leonard. Rookie of the Year went to Karl Anthony Towns. Sixth Man of the Year went to Jamal Crawford. And Most Improved Player of the Year went to CJ McCollum. And Coach of the Year went to Steve Kerr. So all of these awards were obviously no controversial thoughts. Everybody deserved their award that year, especially Steph Curry being the first ever unanimous MVP in NBA history. So it's something to look back on. These awards were definitely well deserved by everybody that got an award for the 2016 NBA season. Now, going into depth of the playoffs, we had a lot of good NBA playoff series in the 2016 NBA playoffs because from start to finish, it was pretty memorable. I mean, let's start off with the Eastern Conference. You had the Pacers, the 7th-seeded Pacers led by Paul George and company, taking on the 2nd-seeded Toronto Raptors. That series went all the way to Game 7, with the Raptors avoiding an upset from the 7th seed knocking off the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference. You had Dwayne Wade, the Miami Heat, go play they were the 3rd seed. They played the 6th-seeded Charlotte Hornets that was led by Kemba Walker and company. That went all the way to Game 7 in round 1 of the Eastern Conference. Meanwhile, later down the line in the playoffs, you had the Oklahoma City Thunder led by Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, Steven Adams. They knocked off and upset at the San Antonio Spurs, and we didn't know at the time, but that would end up being Tim Duncan's final playoff series. He would end up riding onto the sunset, one of the best power forwards in NBA history, retiring after that with the Thunder knocking them off by Game 6. And then in the Western Conference Finals, you had OKC blow a 3-1 lead against the Golden State Warriors, and that opened the door for the Warriors to go all the way back, climb back in the Western Conference Finals, send the Thunder packing home. And we know the rest was history. The league became corrupted after that because Kevin Durant joined the Golden State Warriors the following season. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers pulled off one of the biggest comebacks in sports history when they overcame a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors that year. But let's get into that. The main event of this segment is the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers NBA Finals. Now, I am a true basketball fan, but I stand on this statement to this day. There has not been a more special or more exciting NBA Finals since the 2016 NBA Finals of what the Cavs and Warriors did that year. I have not seen the NBA Finals top it off. I have not seen the excitement in an NBA Finals since then. What these two teams did in 2016 will go down in history as one of the most iconic NBA Finals in NBA history. But the Warriors were having their way against the Cavs to begin the series. They spanked the Cavs, were up 2-0. And then the series was 2-1 in favor of the Warriors. The Warriors spanked the Cavs in Game 4. Steph Curry had his way. And when the Warriors were up 3-1 heading into Game 5, looked like it was all going to be over. Luckily, Draymond Green was suspended for Game 5. That helped the Cavs win another game and build momentum on their quest to be pulling off one of the biggest comebacks in sports history, trying to dethrone a 73-9 team in the NBA Finals, being down 3-1. It all came down to Game 7. Game 7 in the Bay Area was an absolute cinema. And the final 3 minutes of that game was a true cinema, and it was unpredictable because nobody could buy a bucket. Nobody was making anything until the final sequences of the game. I remember Andre Iguodala tried to have the fast break layup, only to get chased down and blocked by LeBron James, one of the best blocks in NBA history, when LeBron James ran down the court 20 miles per hour to have that chase down block. But it all came down to Kyrie Irving with the ball in his hands, having an isolation play against Steph Curry, hitting the step back, fadeaway 3, the go-ahead dagger that helped the Cleveland Cavaliers win their first and only NBA title in franchise history. LeBron James, a kid from Akron, leaving to join the Miami Heat in his quest to win his first NBA title, won 2 titles with the Miami Heat, came back home to the Cleveland Cavaliers and won an NBA title, bringing Cleveland their first NBA title in franchise history, playing alongside the guys that he always wanted to play with when he came back to Cleveland, that being Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. If that is not a cinema for you guys for 2016 NBA season, I don't know what is. And that is one of my favorite seasons of all time. And I still love me some basketball. Don't get me wrong. However, moments like this, games like this, seasons like this, we don't get those anymore in the NBA. We really don't. And what scares me is I want to see those moments relived. I want to just feel the nostalgia of what it's like to have an NBA season feel something special like this. And I have not felt that since 2016. I still love the game, but it just doesn't hit home how this era of basketball did. It just doesn't. So, in my heart, 2016 NBA season will always be a special place in my heart. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. That's all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.